And Aaron, you've got things lined up? Okay, we're streaming now. So I'll welcome everybody to this morning's session of the Joint Standing Committee on Health and Human Services. We'll be considering a number of bills in work session today, 7. And I think some of them have some amendments or changes since we last met. So we'll be going through those and trying to figure out what we can do to improve the bills. If you have a contribution to make and you are an attendee and not in the panelist column, could you put your hand up so that we know that you have something that you'd like to share that might help us do our work better? Other than that, this is really committee work time, depending upon our analyst helping us understand any of the nuances that they've picked up along, that she has picked up along the way. So why don't we introduce ourselves, and we'll start with Representative Griffin, if you would.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Abigail Griffin. I represent House District 102, which is Glenburn, Levant, and Cadesque.
Representative Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Connor. I represent House District 58, which is part of the great city of Lewiston.
Representative Craven.
Good morning. My name is Margaret Craven, and I represent House District 59, which is part of Lewiston.
Representative Madigan.
Good morning. I'm Colleen Madigan. I represent House District 110, which is part of Waterville and part of Oakland.
Representative Lemelin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Lemlin. I represent District 88, Chelsea, Jefferson, Whitefield, and half of Nobleboro.
Representative Stover.
Good morning. My name is Holly Stover. I represent House District 89, including the towns of Boothbay Harbor, Southport, Edgecombe, Westport Island, and part of South Bristol.
And Senator Baldacci.
Good morning. I'm Joe Baldacci. I represent Senate District 9, which is the city of Bangor and the town of Herman. Thank you.
Representative Javner.
Good morning. I'm Representative Kathy Javner. I represent House District 141, which is located in Penobscot and Washington County.
You can tell she needs to leave at 11 o'clock. We didn't hear all the towns. Then Senator Moore.
Good morning. I'm Marianne Moore, and I represent Senate District 6, which is all of Washington County, as well as Goldsboro, Winter Harbor, and Sullivan in Hancock County as well.
Representative Meyer.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank everyone for joining us this morning. I am Representative Michelle Meyer, serving Southern Maine's House District 2, which is all of Elliott and parts of Kittery and South Berwick.
And I'm Ned Claxton. I serve the folks in Senate District 20, which is Auburn, Minot, Mechanic Falls, Poland, and New Gloucester. Before we introduce our staff, I want to just give folks a heads up about the order of the bills. I thought we'd start with 595. I'm trying to start with the ones that seem cleanest to me or clearest to me. 595, and then we'll go to 792, and then 78. And then we'll go to the top of the list as published and pick up on everything we haven't hit so far. So we are incredibly ably supported by our staff. And Ms. Dooling, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Erin Dooling. I'm one of the legislative analysts with the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis. We do not take positions on or advocate for any legislation.
And Ms. Withy.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Withy, and I'm the clerk for the Health and Human Services Committee.
Okay, and with that, why don't we go ahead and, unless there's something else, jump into 595 if you're ready, Erin.
I'm going to share my screen. Can you, is that big enough?
You can see it. That's great.
Okay. Let me have to be a little too big. Okay. LD 595 is the resolve to ensure that access to oral and facial ambulatory surgical centers in Maine remains viable. This is one of the shortest bill analyses you've seen from me so far. It just has the summary and the preliminary fiscal impact statement. The resolve is emergency legislation, which means that it takes effect as soon as it is finally passed. It directs the department to amend its reimbursement rates under the main care program for dental code 41899 to $1,250 for freestanding ambulatory surgical centers performing procedures on the dentoalveolar structure. The preliminary fiscal impact statement shows approximately $31,000 of general fund appropriations in fiscal year 2021. That may have been 21 typo with the fiscal year. So the current fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year, and oh no, that is right because it takes effect when it's approved. So fiscal year 2021 and approximately $148,000 in general fund in fiscal year 21-22. When Luke was preparing the preliminary fiscal impact statement, he assumed an April 1st effective date. So obviously, since it's after April 1st, that should shift at least the first year of cost. You didn't have any questions on this bill, and that's all I have for you.
Senator Baldacci, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to make a motion to ought to pass 595.
I second
Senator
that.
Connor?
I was just going to second the senator's motion.
All righty. So there's a motion on the floor to pass. It's got to be amended by the fiscal note. So it's ought to pass as amended. It's been moved and seconded. Is there additional discussion that people would like to have? I see the bill sponsor, I think. Is that you, Representative Senator Stewart?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and believe me, I don't want to get in the way of just passing the bill outright. So I did have a couple of remarks, but if the committee is more interested in just moving right forward with the bill, I'm happy to sit back and allow you to do that.
You can have the morning off, at least as part of it, I think. All right. Is there any discussion of the bill that we have for the vote? Not seeing any, then I'll defer to Ms. Withy for recording the vote.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry. Representative Perry is absent. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan.
Yes.
Representative Madigan, yes. Representative Javner.
Yes.
Representative Javner, yes. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 11 yes, 2 absent.
There you go, Senator Stewart.
Thank you very much. That's a great way to start the weekend. Take care, folks. Appreciate it a lot.
You too. Thanks for being here. All right. So that would move us to LD 792. And that's for the HOPE program.
So LD 792 is an act to make technical changes to the eligibility provisions of the Higher Opportunity for Pathways to Employment program. It amends that HOPE program by expanding eligible post-secondary undergraduate 4-year degree from the fields of healthcare, technology, or engineering to also include education and any other field specified in department rules. And it updates the terminology from job outlook to number of job openings. You received a couple of proposed amendments from the testimony, to go over in a moment. The fiscal impact statement is not yet determined. The Maine Equal Justice proposed an amendment as part of their testimony that I've identified here. I understand that there may have been some work with the department on changing some of those bullet points. So rather than go through a prior iteration of what's being proposed, you might want to call on somebody to go through what the current proposal is. In addition, Educate Maine was encouraging the committee to include any field that is characterized as in demand in Maine, including business, communications, and social work. The links here refer to different analyses or data hubs on Department of Labor's website that are, I think, being discussed in both the department's bill as drafted and Maine Equal Justice's proposed amendment.
So clarifying question from me, Aaron, as I recollect the conversation, since the number of people participating in this program is limited, it should be a fairly limited fiscal note, depending upon how expensive it is to educate within a certain specialty area.
The department may be able to speak to that, but I don't have a preliminary fiscal impact statement and I'm not your numbers person.
Okay,
So I can't help you with that.
Okay, so Molly Bogart is joining us with hopefully some clarification of that. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Molly Bogart, Director of Government Relations for DHHS. And you're correct, there will be no fiscal note on this because the cap will remain at 500 students. And so it will be, perhaps courses of study or programs that change, but not the number of students or the amount with which we're supporting them.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I recollect too. Well, all we're doing is changing the technical allocation of which are okay areas to study in. So I don't see any hands up from a panelist who wants to contribute, but I did hear from Aaron that there might be somebody from a couple different sources that might have some information. Aaron, who should we call on?
I think Molly Bogart has been involved in those discussions and Christine Hested from Maine Equal Justice.
Okay, so we can move Christine in and we'll hear from Molly.
Sure, and Chris has been working directly with our folks at the Office for Family Independence on this amendment, so she can probably speak to the details, but we are comfortable with this and with the language changes since the since the public hearing, we firmly support it.
Okay, welcome, Ms. Hasted.
Thank you very much. My name is Chris Hasted. I work for Maine Equal Justice. I have had the pleasure of working with the department on this amendment and we've come to agreement. I've also shared this with the university. Sam Warren testified for the university and Becky Smith from the community college. I heard back from Becky this morning and they're fine with it. And I haven't heard from Sam yet, but I did speak with her earlier and she was supportive of the direction we were headed in. What this amendment does is two things. It makes clear which particular links at the Department of Labor Center for Workforce Research and Information people can look at to see what occupations are approvable in this program. Previously, it was difficult to do that because the terminology used wasn't the same as the terminology used by the Department of Labor. So it'll be more transparent and more clear to students. It also makes clear that any job that the Department of Labor determines to be in demand or high wage in demand will be approvable under this program so that students will have more choice so long as the occupation that they want to go in has been demonstrated to have a significant demand for those jobs in the future. So they'll be trained for jobs that will actually exist. That's essentially the changes that we have agreed to.
Okay, so that addresses one of my concerns because I went to the website and I saw the list of approved or the neediest one, and they don't fit any of the four categories that were originally proposed. So things like general and operations managers would get supported in their educational efforts in a way that they wouldn't have been in the original language of the bill. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions of Ms. Hasted or yes, Senator Moore?
No, I didn't have any questions. Thank you, Senator Claxton. I would make a motion that ought to pass as amended on LD 792.
I
I'll
second
second
that.
it.
I hear some seconds for that. There's a motion on the floor to pass LD 792 as amended. Any discussion? Then we'll go to Ms. Withy.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry. Representative Perry is absent. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan.
Yes.
Representative Madigan, yes. Representative Javner.
Yes.
Representative Javner, yes. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 11 yes, 2 absent.
Thank you. So we also talked next about going to LD 78.
LD 78 is an act to protect children from extreme poverty by preserving children's access to TANF benefits. Under current law, DHHS terminates assistance under the TANF program to the entire family, including children, if the children's parents fail to comply with requirements of the family contract for a period of 90 days or for any subsequent failures. The bill amends that provision to terminate benefits for the non-complying parent, but would continue to provide assistance for the children and the complying parent. Under this bill, the benefits to the family would be reduced by terminating the benefits that only apply to the non-complying adult. The preliminary fiscal impact statement shows $753,666 in general fund for fiscal year 22-23, and it assumes an implementation date of January 1, 2023 in order to allow time for rulemaking and technical changes.
That must be your second shortest analysis.
You didn't have any questions to follow up on at the time of the public hearing.
All right, Senator Moore.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. We got an email from Molly Bogart that was indicating that the correct fiscal note is just the federal block grant and that there is no general fund. Is that correct?
Let's defer to Molly.
Yes, yeah, I can confirm that that's correct.
You're right. It's federal. The preliminary shows federal block grant funds. I apologize for that.
Okay. Just wanted to double check. Thank you. One other question, if I could, as a follow-up.
Please.
I think one of the concerns, in looking this over, I mean, I support this. I think it's very, very important. I'm just curious if there's any follow-up by the department when you do have a non-complying parent to make sure that they, the monies that go to the family is indeed being spent on the kids and not the non-complying parent taking advantage of it.
Sure. So we do have a policy that essentially requires, unless there's a special circumstance, for another adult to be designated as the recipient of the benefits for the children. And so those benefits, there are circumstances where another adult is not able to be identified. And so in those cases, those benefits, continue to be provided to the children via the parent in the household. But we do, we certainly maintain a relationship with that family, as we do with all families, and make sure that those benefits are supporting the children and not being diverted in any other way.
Yeah, well, did you finish up your comments, Senator Moore?
Yes, I just said thank you, Molly.
Okay.
Sorry, I muted quickly.
Yes, Representative Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Molly, you had mentioned that the department does have a policy. Can you elaborate a little bit on the oversight of that policy? What does that look like exactly? Making sure I have the same reservation. If a parent is non-compliant and the money is to be used for the child, how does the department actually ensure that that money, besides working with another adult, what's the oversight look like to make sure that those children are getting the funds and not, being spent by another parent who may have been compliant or non-compliant?
Sure, and I might ask you to invite Director Tony Pilat from the Office for Family Independence in. He's in the attendee list, and he can speak to the specific work
Great.
that OFI does.
Great. He is being added as we wait. Welcome, Mr. Pilat. When you unmute, we'd like to hear the answer to Representative Connor's question, if you could help us understand how the money stays where it's supposed to go.
Yeah, apologies for that. To Representative Connor's question, the fact of the matter is the money goes to a specific benefit card that is then used to provide for the family. We have many different protocols in place that allow us to sample cases on a regular basis to ensure that funding that is provided to the families gets spent in the appropriate ways. But there is no 100% way to ensure that if I give Representative Connor $50 to spend on his children, that he's actually going to spend that $50 on his children. So we have different units, like our program integrity unit, and we also have the fraud investigation recovery unit. Their job is to ensure the fidelity of the benefits that we provide to households.
Follow up, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
So the way I understand it, then this new bill would actually, if there is a non-compliant parent, it would reduce the amount of money that is put on that TANF card, correct?
That's correct.
But there's no mechanism to make sure that the reduced funds are only used for the children based on what you just said. So in theory, this bill could actually take away money from children if the parent chose to, take those reduced resources and not spend it on the child, but spend it on themselves. Is that a correct statement?
I think a better way of thinking about it is this change allows us to continue to provide benefits to the children as opposed to not providing any benefits at all to the household. So right now, when a sanction occurs, it's a full family sanction. No benefits get to the household at all. In this solution, you're really only focusing on the individual that has not complied.
Can you speak to some of the oversight that's in place with a little bit greater detail? You mentioned audit and an audit process.
Sure. I mean, one example might be, let's say an individual has been sanctioned in the household and we receive some complaints about that household's money not being spent appropriately. Our fraud investigation unit would follow up on that complaint to see what the circumstances are of that situation.
Okay. Yes, Representative Lemelin?
Thank you, Senator. I'm torn here because on the surface, this bill's a slam dunk. To have children lose out or the family lose out because of one person, of course, that's just not fair. However, if you peel away the layers, I think this thing is very complicated. And if the department handles it properly, we're talking about adding many, many hours of labor to control this properly. So I'm kind of surprised that the department wants to go down that road. And also because if the non-compliant parent when these people are given the money, the non-compliant parent can still have full control of the card. If it's the man or the woman, they can take the card and use it for whatever reason they want to. There's no control that stops anybody from using that card because the money's just, like I said, on a card. So I have a huge problem with the control portion. But I know that we do have a problem here, and I really would like to find a way to get the family the money. But I just have issue. Thank you.
Did you want to speak to that, Mr. Pilat?
Well, if there's a question, I'll be happy to answer it.
Oh,
Sure.
okay. Okay. So I think the question was whether the controls that are in place are robust enough and whether we've allocated enough dollars for the work that's going to be required to monitor the use of these monies.
Got it. So what I would say is it's really no more labor for our staff to sanction one individual or to sanction a full household. It's really the same process. And in fact, we're just focusing the sanction to the individual as opposed to an entire household. I don't think that this particular legislative change is any different than normal issuance of benefits and the protocols that we need to have in place to ensure that the money's spent correctly. A household that's sanctioned or not sanctioned still has the freedom to spend the cash and SNAP benefits that they're issued on that card in the way that they see fit, providing they're following the federal and state regulation rules. So it's really not an additional concern or a heightened concern because of this particular legislation.
Representative Stover?
Thank you, Mr. Pilat. I just have one question. In the process of sort of compiling annualized data for OFI, do you have a measure like a compliance rate with fraud investigations or a way to measure on an annualized basis how many fraud investigations you do that yield, I don't know what, that yield how many percent, what's the percentage of sort of findings, if that makes sense? So how many, do you have a way that you look at, I don't know if it would be called a compliance rate or a fraud rate? What are those rates and how they're measured? Because what I'm trying to get at is how big of a problem is it? Because this particular bill addresses a continuation of something that already exists. What is the annual fraud rate of TANF recipients, whether they've been sanctioned or even more serious?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to get some numbers if that's something you'd like to see. Although I would like to take the moment to point out that my fraud investigation recovery unit led by Tom Roth has been spending a lot of time assisting with CDC help with the pandemic situation. So any recent numbers may be skewed by that fact. But I'm certainly happy to get you a number of complaints versus those that end up following either in an overpayment, an agency error perhaps, or even indictment.
And thank you. And in an anecdotal sense, how, you don't have to say 50% or 10%, how frequently are those cases of fraud brought to court?
Well, I wouldn't say they're frequent. Again, the numbers will show us how many indictments, for example, have resulted in some sort of court activity and whether or not there was an eventual conviction. That's even a bit rarer, but I'm certainly happy to get some numbers on that and share with the group.
And what's, just one last question. What's the most frequent way you get fraud reports? What's the source?
Well, we actually get them in a variety of ways. Online is a big one. They also have a telephone hotline. Sometimes we get it through our constituent channels. So I have a constituent services individual that works here at the office level. There's constituent services at the department level, and of course the governor's office. So all of those things will end up flowing to the fraud investigation unit.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Craven?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. So I think that it sounds like we're talking about people who are low income, like they are, that they're criminals. And maybe you could list some of the infractions that happen that, you know, list people as being out of compliance. Thanks.
Well, typically when we have sanctions, it's because of the work requirement that's associated to the TANF program. So somebody needs to participate in certain types of work activities to ensure that they're meeting the program requirements. So more often than not, a sanction is related to that, where they have an appointment to show up for orientation or some job skills training, and they just simply refuse to show up. They typically are given a few chances to reschedule or come into compliance, but generally that's the nature of a sanction.
Thank you.
Representative Chavner?
Thank you very much, Senator Claxton. I think, you know, we're all agreeing that the children are the ones that really need to be taken care of here, and we understand that completely. However, of course, the piece of the oversight and the accountability is very important, so that to make sure that those children are still going to be taken care of. And that's the piece that is not going to be changed, of course, overnight. It's going to be a long process. And so I came into this work session, you know, definitely not, you know, supporting this. And as I've, you know, been listening and hearing, I really hope the department understands how important this is for us, but also understands, you know, the importance of the oversight, that these children are still going to be taken care of. That is what's, you know, the most important piece. I have one question for Director Palat about how many families a year are we talking about that are actually non-compliant? Do we have that number at least?
I can get you a number from the previous year. We have, since the pandemic, not implemented any sanctions, simply because we wanted to ensure, as to your point, Representative, we want to make sure that the benefits are getting to the households through this unprecedented pandemic. So, but I'm happy to get you some numbers. They're typically on the lower side of our TANF population.
Thank you, if I may, Chair.
Please.
Thank you. So along those lines then, Mr. Palat, through the pandemic, were these non-compliance, were they set aside by executive order? I apologize, I don't know what the process was that you were able to not bring families into non-compliance. What was that ability from?
Well, partly justified by the executive order, of course, but the Administration for Children and Families that provides the TANF block grant allows a wide palette of options to the state. And so it's definitely been to our advantage that they allow the states to decide how they're going to manage the program. So it was really more of a department decision to ensure that benefits are getting to the households through, again, this health crisis.
And when is that to end?
Well, we're certainly monitoring the pandemic like everybody else. So I imagine as things return to whatever the new normal will be, then we'll make that decision. But we definitely are reviewing, at least on a monthly basis, all of our different policies.
Thank you.
And we've been joined by Ms. Hasted. Did you have something to contribute to this conversation?
Thank you, Senator Claxton. Just a piece of information in case it's helpful. My name is Chris Hasted. I work for Maine Equal Justice. I thought it might just be helpful for the committee to have the context of the amount of dollars that we're talking about in a TANF grant. A family of 3 is eligible, excuse me, is eligible for a benefit, a basic benefit of only $620. And when there's a sanction, that drops under this proposal, that would drop to $493. And so, as I'm sure most of you know, that's not enough to pay the rent in most parts of the state. And very small percent of these families are able to get vouchers in the under one of the HUD programs, close to 10%. When a person is sanctioned in TANF, they become ineligible for general assistance to replace the dollars lost in that sanction. There's also a comparable disqualification in the SNAP program, so they will also lose benefits. So a person in this situation, or a family in this situation, becomes sort of in a world of very, very difficult times. And I think the difference between the 493 in our experience over many years is really only enough to pay the rent, and not even that. So I think it's very unlikely that a family would risk spending those dollars on other things. And I think folks may be reminded too that there's a provision in the TANF law that passed a few years ago limiting what benefits could be spent on and preventing them from being spent on things that I think most of you would not want to see them spent on. And that, if they are spent in that way, that triggers the kinds of oversight that Tony was talking about. So thank you for letting me add that piece of information.
Thank you. Yes, Senator Baldacci.
I would like to make a motion to pass. Do we need to do ought to pass as amended, or just ought to pass?
There is a fiscal note, so it's ought to pass as amended.
Yeah, I think it's important. I totally respect the objections that have been raised. You know, there are in thousands of divorce cases, child support's ordered, you know, and the court has no ability. I hear this issue there, like they want to make sure that money is going to the children, which is obviously a legitimate concern, but the judge doesn't have any authority to force an itemization of the money unless it's doing something illegal or against a regulation or something. So, I mean, I don't want to punish. I think the purpose of this is to make sure we're not punishing the whole family, including the kids.
So there's a motion.
So, what's that?
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, that is a motion.
I second it.
And a second. Is there any further discussion? I will say that I hear from Representative Lemelin's concern, and he's asked some questions that I certainly don't know the answer to, but it might be worth having a separate session on main care or TANF benefits and how those are monitored, scrutinized, what's in place to a degree that obviously many of us aren't familiar with. Would that be helpful to you, Representative Lemelin, to have that kind of a session with folks who could answer some of those questions about making sure the money, fraud concerns?
Yes, it would, Senator. Thank you. And I just, I don't know. I just want a little more information on how the department's going to handle this with ease. That's all.
Okay. Yes, Representative Meyer, and then Representative Stover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a department bill that I was asked to sponsor. And unlike the other department bills that I've sponsored, I didn't provide simply an introduction and allow the department then to describe the bill. I came out front here to share my personal experience with TANF. And as I said in my testimony, 31 years ago, I was a TANF recipient as a much younger single mom to 2 small children. And what we're talking about here are children. Children who, whether it's situational or generational, born into poverty, living in poverty. Punishing children is not something that we were elected to do. We are here to look at the system and to find ways to improve it for the most innocent, vulnerable among us. And they are the children. So I would ask that we take a step back, all of us, and remember who we are talking about here. These are children and their ability to be housed and fed and to have the basic necessities of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Stover.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Anything that come before the committee related to this bill? There's a motion on the floor, ought to pass as amended. It's been seconded. Yes, Representative Javner.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. I apologize. Just briefly, there have been some questions that have been raised today, and I think, the department is able to move this forward. Is this an emergency? Does this have an emergency preamble on it?
No.
Okay. So I think that, the department still has the authority to do what this, bill is asking, what they've been doing all along, to actually not even have families come into non-compliance. Is there even, if I may, could I ask, Representative Meyer if it would be possible for us to put this on pause to have those questions answered and then come back to this bill?
So there were a couple pieces to what you just had to say, Representative Javner. I want to make sure I've captured them. One is to consider a tabling motion. That was the last.
Yes.
The early part was whether the department has the ability to proceed along these lines without this blessing. And I just want to get
right until we know there's going to be an end date to that. We don't know when it's going to be, but as through this last year, they've been able to, continue to help these families, even if they were in non-compliance. And so I'm just, yes, that's what I'm asking.
And I just want to check with Mr. Pilat that that's the case, that for the, at least the short term, while there's emergency declarations in place, then this particular issue won't be monitored as closely as it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago.
That's correct. We're monitoring and tracking, but we're not implementing any sanctions.
Enforcing. Okay. So then I think it comes back to you, Representative Javner, in terms of whether you'd like to make a tabling motion.
Yes, I would like to move to table this, please.
There's been a motion to table.
I'll second it.
And a second. So Ms. Withy, can you run the vote in terms of the tabling motion?
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
No.
Senator Baldacci, no. Representative Perry. Representative Perry is absent. Representative Griffin. Representative Griffin is absent. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
No.
Representative Craven, no. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner.
Yes.
Representative Javner? Yes. Senator Moore?
Yes.
Senator Moore? Yes. Representative Meyer?
Yes.
Representative Meyer? Yes. Senator Claxton?
Yes.
Senator Claxton? Yes. That's 7 yes, 2 no, 3 absent.
Okay, in anticipation of the work session, when we revisit this bill, Ms. Dooling, do you have a sense of the questions that have been asked so far? And Molly, do you have a sense of the questions that we need some help with?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I fully captured what those questions were and see if there were any others that you wanted follow up from the department on.
Okay. So, Molly, I asked a question of you. Do you have a sense of what the questions are? Or should we just work it through with Aaron and we'll, okay. All right. Yes, Representative Stover, you had your hand up first. You're still on mute. All better.
For the work session, if we could add to the conversation about TANF in general, what it takes for someone to get on TANF, so that we all have an understanding of all of the things that someone must bring to the table in order to complete an application and the process. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
And that's in addition to your requests earlier about information on fraud data. And since we can't really rely on the last year, maybe a prior year's experience.
If we can't rely on the past year, I'm comfortable with Mr. Pilat just giving us his sense as the director of what fraud looks like for his office within the department. I just think that I was trying to really garner a sense of how large is the problem and how pervasive is the problem. And if he could just give us an answer to that, I think we could forego numbers at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Representative Griffin.
I lost my connection. I don't know if I needed to vote on the tabling motion or.
I think since we're still having a conversation, if it's okay with the powers that be, we'll record your vote. And Ms. Withy, can you add that to the tally?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a yes vote.
Yes.
Okay. And Senator Moore.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. I was just thinking, I know Mr. Polt, you had mentioned that they were taking a look at, what's going on and during this pandemic. If we have any ideas to the numbers that might have been sanctioned during this pandemic, that I think that might be helpful to have that information as well. Thank you.
Yes, Representative Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe Christine Hastet brought up the issue of, what TANF can be spent on. I guess I could go out and research it on my own, but if we could get an exact list of everything that TANF is able to be spent on, I think that would help us as well.
And Senator Moore, is your hand up again or still? All right, Representative Lemelin.
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to say that I'm in full agreement with Representative Meyer, and I want everybody to know that I feel exactly the way she does, except I just see some serious problems here, and I'm not saying that they can't be corrected. I think they can be. And so I think with a little more information, we might be able to get to where we're trying to go here. So that's it.
Okay. Senator Moore, is your hand still up or up again? She must have stepped away. So we'll assume their hand is not still up and we'll fix that. Okay. Is there any other direction for Aaron? Does that give you enough to go on, Ms. Dooling?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And for Molly and Mr. Pilat, is that focused enough for what might be helpful for the next work session? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Pilat. Appreciate that information, and we'll look for some further clarification. I do need to observe that I think some of the concerns speak to much greater concern than just to how this particular technical change will be done. And so I think there's some overarching questions about how we assure integrity in our system for TANF and those benefits. So I think if you can help us better understand what's in place, then that would go a ways to answering some of those concerns. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Do you want a caucus or just?
No, just a break.
Okay, sure. We can take a 5-minute break. So we'll come back. Let's make it 10 o'clock and make it an 8-minute break.
Thank you.
See you at 10. Okay, we can resume our work session after that welcome break. And let's just take them in order the way they're published from now on, starting with LD 48.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. You don't see my email, right? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. LD 48 is a resolve requiring DHHS to request a waiver relating to support services and to provide funds to prevent homelessness. It has two parts. The first part requires the department to apply for a waiver to allow Maine to provide Medicaid-funded direct support services to individuals experiencing homelessness. The second part is an appropriation section that would provide $500,000 in general fund to the Housing First Assistance Program within the Maine State Housing Authority that would be distributed to community action agencies to assist individuals on the verge of becoming homeless. You heard from the sponsor that he was proposing to remove the appropriations section, which is section 2. I do want to note that if the committee is inclined to vote in section 2, that there was a typo identified and information provided on an identical bill last session, that the account shouldn't be the Housing First program, it should be the temporary housing program. The fiscal impact hasn't yet been determined. And you had some information that you requested from a couple of people from the department. You asked about the geographic distribution of the Medicaid Innovation Accelerator program that the department is currently working to put in place by the end of the calendar year. The department's testimony outlined some of those activities that they were engaging in. And it also included, there are links here to the report issued pursuant to a resolve that the legislature passed on the 129th. So hopefully Molly can speak about that. In addition, you asked Colin Ryan from, I don't remember what CHOM stand for. I think it's Community Housing something of Maine, maybe. He provided information about evidence-based information about cost savings data and information on updated measures relating to our long-term stayers. And that information is in your electronic LD file.
Are there questions of the analyst related to that report? Yes, Senator Baldacci.
I have no questions. I want to make a motion. I want to make a motion ought to pass as amended, with the amendment being that the appropriation be taken out and that this just be the waiver request.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
There's a second. Additional discussion. I'd like some clarification from the department about whether the waiver process has already started or is in place, or whether you really need this to move this along. Is that something you can help with, Ms. Bogart?
It is something that I can help you with, which would be by inviting Jennifer Patterson in the attendee. She's our Director of Policy at Maine Care. And if you would indulge us to have her join, I think she can talk to you about the work that they're doing.
All righty. And we're joined by Ms. Patterson. Well, she gets, yes, she's unmuted now. Did you hear the question, Ms. Patterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that I did hear the question. I had a momentary delay.
That's okay. You know, we know that you go into a cyberspace somewhere in the transition. Yeah, the question was asked whether this waiver process has already started, whether this particular piece of legislation is helpful to the department. Those are the general picture, yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So the process that the department began pursuant to the prior legislation that was passed on the 129th required us to look at both a waiver and a state plan amendment, and that work is well underway. We've been working with stakeholders to stand up a program that we are hoping will be in place this year that will provide Medicaid funded support services, but via a state plan amendment rather than a waiver. And the work that we did with stakeholders and with technical assistance looked at the waiver route, and what we found was that there were some requirements associated with their waiver program that would undercut the continuity associated with having a care coordination team that followed the members through all tiers. So that was one of the reasons that we, as a group, but also the department, decided to focus on the state plan amendment route rather than the waiver route.
So the follow-up question is there anything that we can do that would help this process along, given its importance?
Thank you for the question. I don't have a specific suggestion with that. I think it's well underway, and the work, it should be in place. I also do have Derek Grant, who is the Legislative and Special Projects Manager with our policy division, who may be able to offer further information, but I don't have a specific suggestion as to something that would be helpful.
Okay. Why don't we hear from the sponsor I see who has joined us. Welcome, Representative Brennan. Having heard the analysis and some information from Ms. Patterson, any thoughts?
Thank you, Senator Claxton and Representative Meyer, members of the committee. As I think I mentioned during the public hearing, Representative Gattin had submitted a bill last year, and it was referenced in the analyst comments that a report was provided in October of 2020. And quite frankly, both Representative Gattin and myself were disappointed in that report and that it was fairly general and not very specific about how they intended to move forward with this particular waiver. So I have had an opportunity to talk to Cullen Ryan between the public hearing and today's work session. And, I appreciate and really respect all the work that the department has put forward in looking at the state plan and at the waiver. But I continue to believe that there needs to be some nudging along and moving this along. And so I would hope LD 48 would continue to do that.
Okay. Are there any other discussion questions? Maybe we could bring Mr. Ryan in to hear his perspective about this.
Hi, Senator Claxton. And
welcome.
Thank you for having me on. Just to build on what Representative Brennan was saying, the Medicaid Innovation Accelerator Program has really been doing an excellent job. The department has been listening really carefully and attentively to people who are right in the middle of this, trying to work with the most complicated populations. And they have devised a strategy which I feel is going to be extremely helpful. It involves low barrier access to services for the population that we're looking at. I think it shows flexibility and really careful consideration on the part of the department, the way that they have landed on this from providers who use these type of and build these type of services. What they have told me and suggested is that this will work. It will be a flexible way to get services out there and not have there be challenges to folks being able to access them, which is a problem for people with serious and persistent mental illness. Some don't identify as having any sort of issue at all, and everybody outside is quite aware that they're facing challenges. So having it be low barrier is really important. So I think that Representative Brennan is talking about making sure that this process is seen all the way through. I have confidence that it's going to be seen all the way through, but if this bill can help to ensure that, then that's great. But I can't speak to exactly how or what the mechanism is, but I do know that the group from DHHS has been working on something of a behavioral home model. And my understanding is that that is in existence, it's being used, and it really is just a modification of that behavioral home model to target a population that needs this level of service that will be discussed in the next bill. I hope that it's that kind of service that's going to be critical to making all of this work. So and when I get into mechanics, I'm not sure I can offer much more about Bill
Well,
would judge that. But
you've been in the fight a long time, so we wanted to hear from you. So thank you for that. Senator Moore.
I'm just wondering if, and you're listening to what's going on and all that they are already doing, the department's already doing. I'm really wondering if this bill is necessary, and maybe if we just send a letter to the department asking that they can, keep us up to date as to what is going on with the state plan amendment and what's been accomplished, and giving us an update. We could maybe put a date on it or something such as that, just so that we do know that the ball is not being dropped and that they are continuing to go forward with it. Just a thought.
Great minds. I was wondering about a report back at intervals about progress, since that's the real issue. And I'm concerned that the legislation insists on a waiver, and we've been told that we went down that road and we didn't like that option. So I did hear that from Ms. Patterson. Maybe we can get Mr. Grant in, Derek Grant in, to speak a little bit to where things stand now and where they're going at Ms. Patterson's suggestion. I was thinking about a different Derek Grant and wondering how he could be helpful, but your Derek may be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome, Mr. Grant. When you unmute, we'd like to hear a thumbnail or two about where this project stands now.
Thank you for having me. We've been working with the stakeholders pretty much since LD 1318 passed almost 2 years ago now, but it's been the last year that things have really picked up in earnest. As was noted, we looked at all the various waivers first and foremost with the stakeholders, and looked at the approach that would best serve the members' needs, or the targeted members. And I understand the appeal of a waiver, that you can get outside traditional rules, but the problems with waivers is that they come with their own sets of rules. Things like budget neutrality, institutional level of care, independent assessments, conflict-free case management. A lot of those rules were identified as barriers to serving this population. So what we're working on now is a health home model that we think is going to best serve the members, and we've been actively working with the stakeholders to move that along, and we're hoping for, fingers crossed, January 1st.
January 1st. Okay. And if you're the project manager, you have some idea what the barriers are. What are the barriers that we as a committee or the legislature might be able to help with?
I understand your concern about keeping the department's, feet to the fire. And I appreciate that. I think a more aggressive report back, if that would make you happy, then we're happy to do that. I just worry that pursuing the requirement to pursue a waiver will be replicating work we've already done. I can assure you personally that the project's well underway. Colin, I think, can attest to that. Providers seem happy. We're happy. This is an identified need, and it's been exciting to work on a new program and a new project, which isn't an opportunity that comes along often.
Okay. Thank you for being here and providing some of that information. That's very helpful. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Senator Baldacci.
Well, I'd like to hear from the bill sponsor, Representative Brennan, on his thoughts on that. I tend to agree with him that it's not going to cause I don't believe it will cause the department to replicate work it's already done. It will just help make sure it happens. But I'd like to hear from Representative Brennan on his thoughts.
Thank you, Senator Baldacci, for the question. And certainly, I don't want to replicate unnecessary or have unnecessary work done by the department. The primary concern is to make sure that this work is going forward. and that we're not sitting here next year saying, why haven't we seen more that's happened? And again, just based on past experience over the last year, there's been a lot of effort to move this initiative forward, and there are still some pieces that are left and work left to be done. But Senator, if you wanted to modify the motion from an ought to pass on LD 48 from pursuing a waiver to having a more aggressive report back from the department to this committee about the progress they're making in the state plan and being able to utilize Medicaid resources to support housing first programs and other homeless assistance programs. I think that might be a prudent way for the committee to move forward.
And what would you suggest, Senator, Representative, in terms of the timetable for getting that report back?
Well, I'm a little worried about next January.
Right.
And I'd like to see quarterly or at least a 6-month report back on progress that's been made. And, if we're talking April now, and either some type of quarterly or a 6-month report, and then one again in January, I think that would be helpful to the committee as well as myself.
Yeah, I would go with quarterly. I'd be open to, Mr. Chairman, an amendment to amend it to require what's been termed a quote unquote aggressive report or reports on a quarterly basis, starting with July 1st of this year. And to report quarterly as to the progress being made on the waiver.
Well, there's 2 questions there. Are you still leaving the waiver in your motion?
No, I think we're going to modify it to
okay.
Quarterly report if I hear the sponsor correctly.
So do you want to withdraw your previous motion and we can start clean?
Sure. I would move that the bill be amended to require a quarterly report, with the first one due July 1st, 2021, and each quarter thereafter to this committee that clearly indicates the progress has been made to obtain this waiver and what obstacles may or may not.
No, to continue.
Is that too long of a motion?
No. What you're looking for is a regular report back on the progress in this effort on the state plan to provide these services, and we're going to leave the word waiver out of the conversation.
Right. Okay.
And would you, as a friendly amendment, accept June 1st while we're still in session as a project 101 from Mr. Grant and Ms. Patterson? And if that's doable, that's a question to you all. And then also September 1 and January 15.
Okay. No, that's all friendly amendments.
Okay.
Thank you for the guidance.
All right. Representative Perry, you had your hand up first. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. My question is, does this need to be a bill? Wouldn't this be as effective? I'm not sure. It needs to be state legislation. We can send a letter requesting those report backs in the Times, and it just doesn't make sense that this would be a bill.
Okay. So yes, Erin.
Typically, legislation, if it's not an emergency, is effective 90 days after enactment, which would be November, October. So you might be looking at an emergency preamble needed on this bill. If it you're looking for June 1st.
If it survives as a bill. If it's a letter and a request of the department, we could get June and September and January reports without legislation, right?
Yes, I was just going off of the motion that was made.
Okay. All right. I saw some hands up and then disappear. Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator. I was thinking, I don't necessarily disagree with Representative Perry. This could either be a resolve, a one-time resolve, as opposed to something that's in statute. And secondly, if the committee were to write a letter and feel that they could hold the department, accountable and would pay attention to this issue and would have a commitment to continue to try to move things forward. I'm most concerned about getting the work done, as opposed to whether or not it's a piece of legislation or resolve or requires legislative action. And I got to believe that the committee is also equally committed to just making sure that the work gets done. So whatever vehicle and avenue we can ensure that to happen satisfies my needs at this particular point.
Thank you for that. And that's certainly what I heard, and I appreciate that. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative Brennan, for your comments. I'm not sure what the status of the motion is currently. Is there a motion on the table?
Yes, Senator Baldacci made a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could be recognized.
Please.
I will withdraw that motion. And with the hope that we can do a letter to the department requesting the reports that have been mentioned on an aggressive basis so that we know where this is headed. So I will withdraw my motion. I will make a motion of ought not to pass them. And so we can at least report it out. But I would like a letter sent that details the sponsors' objectives, because I think we share those objectives.
Okay.
I would second that motion.
Very good. Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Bogart.
And I just want to say, for everyone's comfort level, we're happy to commit to quarterly reports. So July, October, and January, or ongoing as needed.
Can we make that June before we adjourn, just as a 101 from Mr. Grant?
Sure.
Okay. While we're in session, maybe. Okay. So the motion is ought not to pass, with the proviso that a letter will be sent requesting quarterly reports starting in June. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Withy.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry.
Oh, yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner.
Yes.
Representative Javner, yes. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 11 yes, 2 absent.
So thank you to the bill sponsor, Representative Brennan, for being here and working with us to hopefully get closer to what you're really shooting for, what we're all shooting for.
And Senator, I want to thank you and the committee for paying attention. I think this is an important issue. I'm glad the department is paying attention to it. And hopefully we can continue to work together, the committee and myself, to move this forward. So thank you very much for your attention. And I look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that we can take full advantage of this important resource for the state. So thank you.
And we can maybe include a reminder to our committee when we set up the report back time that you get an invitation.
Thank you.
And I wanted to thank Ms. Patterson and Mr. Grant for being here and providing that information they did. And obviously, Mr. Ryan has been in the trenches for a very long time, and that deserves recognition too. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so that'll conclude the work session consideration on LD 48. That'll bring us to LD 475.
Sorry about that. LD 475 is a resolve to create the Frequent Users System Engagement Collaborative, or FUSE Collaborative. This resolve is emergency legislation, which means it takes effect immediately upon final passage. The FUSE Collaborative would be directed to develop a plan to provide stable housing and community service to 200 people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, who are the most frequent consumers of high-cost services such as psychiatric hospitals, emergency shelters, emergency rooms, police jails, and prisons. Membership of the collaborative includes representatives from the Maine State Housing Authority, the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Corrections, Statewide Homeless Council, Maine Sheriff's Association, Emergency Health Services, and any other members with relevant expertise. The collaborative is directed to submit a report to the committee no later than January of next year on its plan and recommendations, and the committee is authorized to report out a bill to the second regular session of the 130th relating to that report. Just a drafting note that I didn't include here is that because it says bill, you would be restricted to an act. By changing it to legislation, you could report out either a resolve or a bill. So just a quick note on that. In terms of suggested amendments from testimony, you received 3 suggestions for additional potential membership of the collaborative, including a municipal official, a representative of a psychiatric hospital, and representative providers of community-based behavioral health services. You had some questions for Maine State Housing, which were emailed to you and posted in your electronic LD file, and also from Colin Ryan from Community Housing of Maine. That is also information that's been provided in your electronic LD file about similar efforts that have been implemented in other communities. The preliminary fiscal statement shows a minor cost increase that can be absorbed within existing resources, and as drafted, currently no fiscal note is required.
So can you just go through once more for me, since I still struggle with this, the difference between bill, legislation, and resolve?
Yeah, so an act or a bill is typically legislation that would go into the red books, the revised statutes, or it could just simply be an appropriation, and it has an ongoing effect. A resolve does not go into the red books. It's typically for one time or short duration. It could also include funding, but using the term legislation gives the committee more options at the time it receives a report back than just using the word bill. Seems to restrict your authority.
Right. Okay. Any questions of Ms. Dooling after that analysis? I don't see any. Mr. Ryan, does this need to be ongoing effort, or is this a one and done?
I think it is, the idea is that once you figure out how to properly care for this population and get them into housing, they're all set, and if we can keep these mechanisms in place where all the different parts of the system that touch the same people are in communication and collaboration with each other, we'll have a mechanism to perpetuate that goodwill and keep getting the right people housed so that they don't start ricocheting. So once we prove to ourselves we can get this done with these 200 people, and it might start with 30 or 40 and build from there, we will have the mechanism in place. And as discussed in the previous legislation, the Medicaid Innovation Accelerator Program and the work of the department to create a mechanism for services is going to be critical to this, as is having housing that targets the population and welcomes them in, because we know they do well once they're in housing.
And my concern is that with a January 1 report date, to talk about the collaborative plan, we won't have any results. And
I'm sorry. I think I mistook your question. I apologize. I believe that what this bill does is it convenes all of the key players, the decision makers, to come to the table. And I think it's quite possible for all of them to come to the table pretty quickly if invited and encouraged through this legislation. Once they're there, they start to develop a plan to put in motion the services and housing for the population. And then they're invested in it. They're in it from the beginning, and they start to specify how to collect data about the results that can be pretty dramatic in terms of cost savings and positive results, but they're on board. So this bill really just gets the whole thing started and creates a mechanism for reporting back the success internally so that those groups have a reason to be together and keep working together to perform that task. So I do think by January, we really could get this done, and perhaps even sooner. Thank you. And I apologize.
Representative Craven and then Representative Lemelin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ryan, Mr. Ryan. So I know that Senator Baldacci brought this up earlier, and it's a concern that I have as well, and that is how you manage geographically, how areas are chosen to provide those services, because you know, often I worry that Lewiston gets left behind.
Am I able to answer that? Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. Representative Craven, I think it is the person, and the idea of this is to meet each individual where they're at. Systems are broad. By bringing in the Sheriff's Association, if somebody is touching a jail in Lewiston or in Bangor or wherever, the idea is that those folks are at the table to help get that person housed so that they're not doing that anymore. Similarly with the hospitals, similarly with police, fire, and rescue, and similar with homeless shelters. So this really reaches across the whole state and goes to where the people are showing to be ricocheting, and helps to get those people housed so that they stop that.
Thank you very much.
Representative Lemelin.
Thank you, Senator. I have two concerns. One is similar to Representative Craven. Who is going to choose who's in the collaborative and who is not? Because it's not just a matter of the Sheriff's Association. I mean, that's kind of broad. Are there specific people, and who's going to choose these specific people is my first question.
So in my experience, usually it's the entity designates somebody to participate. So they'd be looking for a volunteer, and those are typically people who are interested in the issue, specific to the Sheriff's Association or the Homeless Council or DOC. Those would all be appointed by their by their entities. That's my understanding. Does that address that concern?
Well, it addresses it, but it makes the concern worse, because now if the only one volunteering happens to be, a sheriff in a rustic county, and they don't really have as big of an issue as, like Representative Craven said, Lewiston, which I'm sure has some issues, same as my area, then maybe there won't be the proper information given to the collaborative, and that is one of my concerns.
Okay. I think you mentioned two. Representation is one.
Correct. The second one is the where. The second one's part of it, where.
Okay.
The different locations, how are they identifying? If I could see where these locations are, that there's a specific problem, that might help too.
Okay. All right. Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Ryan. And the bill sponsor, Representative Morales, is also with us.
Oh, good.
We heard from MMA, Maine Municipal, Northern Light, and the community behavioral health folks about additional members of the collaborative from each of those areas. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on including members in the collaborative as was requested.
Thank you for being here, Representative Morales. Did you have an answer to that question?
I would, thank you so much for having me, first of all, and I would defer to Mr. Ryan on the answer to that question, if that's okay with the committee.
Sure. So thank you for the question. The more people that can come to the table and be included as part of the process, the more likely we're going to be successful in having a positive outcome. So it's a big table. It doesn't need to be huge, but you have to get all the players there, and there's no harm in having additional people come and or join after the fact. The idea is that this is a population that affects a lot of different systems. And if we can have folks thinking from each of those systems, how their systems could work better, then on the local area, all the local areas where this happens, proper strategies can be implemented to get these people housed and stabilized so that they stop ricocheting.
And the provision in the bill does include, quote, any other members with relevant expertise as determined by the director. We could add language or recommended by the membership. How would you feel about that? Because I think the director obviously is going to have some good ideas, but maybe the people in the seats might have some additional ideas.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay. Would that address some of your concern, Representative Lemelin, or do you have a new question?
No, it's just a comment on that. Yes, it would. My question is, if somebody, if a representative or a senator in the Health and Human Services, if there's some way that we can see who is on the collaborative panel, and that would be helpful. And also, if I saw that a certain area wasn't being covered and there was somebody from that area that I would like on the panel and is willing to be on the panel, would we be in the position to make that recommendation?
I certainly think that we could approach the director of Maine Housing and say, have you thought about including the State Housing Authority? Have you thought about including some folks and see what the response would be? I do see a report back in January and we can be informed before then about what the membership is as that process gets started.
Okay, and now you reminded me of my second concern, and that is, since I'm new to this, you said something about in the second session, we would be able to review these reports back. Would we have the ability to change our position on this at that time and come up with a new bill, or change this bill, or remove this bill at that time?
That's part of the bill as it stands. That would give us the option in the second session to create new legislation to support, modify this effort. That's in the language.
That helps a lot, Senator. Thank you.
Good. Ms. Dooling. Oh, I hope you're not frozen, Aaron. You've had trouble with your connection today. I don't think it's me and everybody else. Oh, there, you're back. Good.
I'm sorry. Did you call on me? I think my internet dropped for a second.
It did. You
Okay.
froze for a minute. Yeah, you froze.
I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm glad to see you unthawed.
Okay. I had to address some of Representative Lemelin's comments. If the committee is concerned about geographic distribution of membership, you could include some language directing membership to be reflective of needs of this population statewide. About the Sheriff's Association specifically, you're not directing a particular sheriff, you're directing someone representing the Sheriff's Association, which presumably is a statewide association of sheriffs. The other thing I just wanted to note that I forgot to mention is that because it says a bill, not only is it restricted to a bill, but it's restricted to a single piece of legislation. So by putting that the committee is authorized to report out legislation, you wouldn't be restricted to one bill, and you wouldn't be restricted by the type of legislative vehicle that you could report out next session after you get the report from the collaborative.
That part, good. Okay, good. How do those things sound to you, Representative Morales?
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay. So as Representative Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make a motion that this ought to pass as amended with the inclusion of the three requests for the MMA, the Northern Lights, and Alliance for Addiction and Mental Health Services, as well as the geographical disbursement.
And would you accept it as a friendly amendment to include language in item number 6, where it says, as determined by the director or members of the committee?
Yes, with that friendly amendment.
To broaden that. Okay, then I'll second that.
And maybe legislation, not bill?
Yes, because we do want follow-up and the option to maintain follow-up with that January report. So there's a motion on the floor. There's a total of 4 amendments attached to that, or 5, depending on whether you count the names as one and the other. Are there any comments about the motion on the floor, which is ought to pass as amended? I don't see any other comments, so we'll turn it over to Ms. Withy for the vote.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner.
Yes.
Representative Javner, yes. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 11 yes, 2 absent.
There we go, Representative Morales. Thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing this legislation forward.
Thank you all very much.
We've learned a lot and hopefully made some progress. Thank you again, Mr. Ryan, for being here.
Thank you very much.
All right, that takes us to 512, LD 512. Yes, Representative Withy. Ms. Withy.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. Could we have a few minutes for me to notify the sponsor of the bill?
Sure. Do we want to go to 674? Do we also need to notify that sponsor too?
I believe we would have to notify Senator Breen as well.
So why don't we take a 5-minute break and see if you can round up the sponsor for 512?
Thank you.
Okay. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Is your hand up still, Ms. Withy, or?
No, thank you, Senator Claxton.
Okay. Welcome, Representative Dodge.
Good morning, Senator. Thank you.
I'm getting better at reading lips with our Zoom feature. People forgetting to hit the button. We're going to hear from our analyst about this bill, and then we'll entertain some comments. So the floor is yours, Ms. Dooling.
Thank you. So this is LD 512, which is an act to provide intensive case manager or ICMs to counties that do not have county jails or regional jails. Both the bill and the sponsor's proposed amendment that she presented at her the public hearing directs the department to create additional ICM positions so that the counties that do not have county jail or regional jails will have an intensive case manager. ICM is a person who oversees persons who are criminal justice involved and who have intellectual disabilities or mental health conditions or have substance use disorder. And under the bill would connect them to the services for which they qualify, work with the court system to ensure they receive due process and speedy trials, and assist persons who qualify for the MAIN Care program to apply for and receive those benefits, including implementing a diversion and reentry plan. The sponsor's proposed amendment made a number of changes, including changing the term substance misuse, which was a drafting oversight, to substance use disorder that adversely affects a person's daily functions, specifies that the determination of whether an individual has a condition, which is a defined term in the statute, in the proposed bill, rather, determined using appropriate screening tools or assessments, clarifies that the diversion plan may be implemented either pre-trial or post-conviction, that the ICMs must be full-time, and provides that not only are ICMs working with persons detained by law enforcement, but also persons incarcerated in a county or regional jail or reentry center. It adds rulemaking authority for the department, and it makes some other technical changes. The department identified several issues in its testimony on this bill, including that the duties in the bill and the job descriptions are fewer, this is their language, fewer, less comprehensive, and sometimes at odds with the current responsibilities of the existing ICMs, that ICMs are under the Office of Behavioral Health, but individuals with intellectual disabilities are served by the Office of Aging and Disability. That the time period may not be consistent with the current practices of the ICMs and may result in duplication of services, and that the department does not have control over where ICMs can be based. It's based in collaboration with the jail or the sheriff's office. In terms of drafting, I have identified a number of questions, clarifying questions here. They revolve around clarifying the duties of the ICM and trying to make sure that the process is consistent with both the intent of the bill and also kind of what the existing practices are. It can be a little complicated to try to capture accurately an existing program with existing positions after the fact into statute, and so it would need more information about that. Preliminary fiscal impact statement indicates approximately $378,000 in general fund for fiscal year 21-22 and $394,000 in 2021. Fiscal note was required. The committee had questions about how the fiscal note was derived. Luke's answer is in the italics here. These new positions are the same exact position title as the current positions in the state. Additionally, the department noted that 4 ICM positions are needed because 8 counties are currently sharing 4 ICMs. And this bill states at least 1 ICM position per county. The counties which are currently sharing an ICM are Penobscot and Piscataquis, Oxford and Androscoggin, Lincoln and Sagadahoc, and Washington and Hancock counties.
So does that prompt any questions of the committee based on that analysis? Okay. Any thoughts from the sponsor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for those clarifiers, Ms. Dooling. Many of those were prompted by the corrections and concerns of this committee back in the 129th. I'm not sure if there are any other clarifications that I can make at this time. I certainly will try to answer questions, but I'm guessing there are others who are more closely related to these duties that could better answer than I. Thank you.
Are there questions we'd like to put of the sponsor or Ms. Stooling or the department? Yes, Representative Perry.
I would like to know actually the configuration of ICMs that we have right now and the intended adding of 4 and what we've had in the past. It might be helpful.
Is that something you can speak to, Ms. Bogart?
I apologize. Was there just a question for me?
Yes, there was a question for you about the number of ICMs and their current distribution.
Got it. I will have to get you the total number of ICMs that we have on staff right now, but there is at least one ICM assigned to every county, although some counties share an ICM. And so I think that is the concern that Representative Dodge is trying to address. I know there are 4 ICMs that split counties, and I can get you that list as well.
We just saw that list. Yeah, no,
Great.
that was on Aaron's analysis, and you have other work to do. No, we're
Well,
all
it's in the department's testimony that there are currently 16 ICMs throughout the state.
okay, and this proposes adding 4.
Yes.
So that it isn't shared, so that resource isn't shared at the 8 sites that share resources now. Does that answer your question, Representative Perry?
Yes.
Okay, Representative Lemelin.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I only have one question and concern. Is this bill limited to the 4 additional and the approximately $400,000?
That was the way I read it, but let's see what Ms. Dooling has to say.
Yes, because it's identifying, the fiscal note identifies that it's specifically for ICM positions. And that's how Loop calculated it to arrive at the appropriation amount.
Does that answer your question, Representative Lemelin?
Yes, it does. That was just a concern of mine. And if it does limit it to 4, then that solves my problem.
Okay. So let me ask, Senator Moore, did you have a question or a comment?
I do. I briefly remember this bill last session. And I know we worked through a lot of the different drafting issues and the different this and that. And so I'm wondering, and we came to a unanimous agreement with the amendment that we had on that bill as it was. So I didn't know, and I haven't had a chance to compare it note to note here to see, are we using the amended version that we came up with last session? We're not, Aaron.
No, we're not. The committee actually didn't engage in a review of the language. They struck the language from the bill and put forward an appropriation. And I can share that unanimous report. I can share that with you if you'd like me to.
If you would, please.
So it makes an appropriation for funding for 4 intensive case manager positions. And you can see here that it amends the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause. So there's no language associated.
And that's the language that got unanimous support in the last session.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Senator Moore?
Well, that's what I'm just wondering if we don't want to, if we want to revert to that,
Mhm.
you know, as opposed to, because of some of the concerns that Aaron has brought up, I'm wondering if that's what we should be doing or should consider, I should say.
Okay. Representative Meyer?
I would be, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be in agreement with Senator Moore. I think that there are some issues here, not the least of which are the differing, the positions are described in such a way that they appear to be at odds with the current responsibilities, as Erin has pointed out in her. So there's some job description disparities there. And I would be in favor of striking the language and reverting back to the amendment that this committee passed in the 129th.
Before we do that, I want to hear from Ms. Bogart and then from the sponsor. Do you, how would this resource be allocated if there were now approval for 4 new ICMs?
Sure. So, I would need to work with the Office of Behavioral Health because they would, consider that in the context of the current work that we're doing. But as you may remember, we had a budget initiative for 10 additional positions related to the intensive case management program to expand this work. I know that we're very interested in making sure that these services, which are very successful and critical to the community, continue to be expanded. And so by adding 4, you would certainly be adding to our capacity statewide. And if there are specific areas of concern that we don't feel like we're reaching effectively or appropriately, then I am sure that they would be diverted there.
I don't want to speak for the sponsor, but my sense is the concern really is about incarcerated population wherever they are. And where do folks who are incarcerated fit in the priority list for the department?
Yeah,
or engaging with ICM?
I would, I wish I had a pie chart at my fingertips about sort of where their time is spent, but a significant amount of ICM time is spent with folks who have been incarcerated or are incarcerated and looking forward to reentry to the community to help ensure that they have the services and supports that they need. So I feel like I can comfortably say that they're very high in the priority list of the community members that the ICMs work with.
Okay. Representative Dodge, any thoughts about any of these comments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Bogart, for those clarifications. I simply would bring to the committee's attention that specifically when I asked about the governor's additional 10 positions in the 129th, I believe I am correct in none of those positions were assigned to the Waldo County Regional Reentry Center. That's point number 1. Point number 2, it does seem that when other positions are added, once again, regional reentry centers perhaps could be viewed as losing out on that standard of 1 that I mentioned in my testimony. And the third point and last point that I would make is we currently have at our reentry center folks who very much value the services of intensive case managers with their residents, to the extent that they have written grants so that these services can be provided in supplement to what is provided at the state level. And I certainly would hope that their efforts that have been Herculean to provide these services would not in any way count against them in consideration for, once again, that standard of 1 per county, which I believe we have as a responsibility. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Bogart.
Thank you. And I just wanted to clarify that the 10 are proposed in the 130th biennial budget. They were not in the budget that was passed, so they will be part of your supplemental conversation. But if there's concern that they haven't been allocated yet, it's only because they are still a proposal and not hired.
Are there other questions about this bill? Any concerns, thoughts? Yes, Representative Perry?
I guess my thought is if we were going to do a bill with a request for more ICMs, that we mirror the request in the initiative and bring that forward to sort of double up on the request.
So you're talking about 4?
I'm talking about 10.
Okay, so that's a new, that's not been part of this. Okay. Any thoughts about going to 10? Because that would increase the fiscal note a bit. Yes, Senator Moore.
What I'm thinking, thank you, Senator Claxton. What I'm thinking is what Representative Perry is really indicating. It would almost be the bill just in case those 10 ICMs are not approved in the supplemental, I guess it's going to be called a supplemental budget. So we would use this as the mechanism for those 10 that are already in the biennial budget, or was it proposed in the biennial budget? That's how I'm understanding what Representative Perry mentioned.
Is that
Correct?
accurate? Yes, Representative Stover.
I just wanted to support what Representative Perry said. I can tell you anecdotally, working with the police department in substance use disorder, that we're seeing a significant rise in the amount of major mental illness and people who are struggling in the community, many of which have returned from some type of incarceration or oftentimes headed to incarceration. But the isolation, the depression, and the hopelessness that people have lived with for the last year has exacerbated everything sort of on overload. If there was ever a time that I think we need to support these positions, and I mean, I don't think they ever should have been taken away, and I've said that before, but if there was ever a time to support this, now would be the time. Thank you.
I'm nothing if not a pragmatist. So as I understand, the options would be to change the bill to make it 10 ICMs. Would we, and language that would include placement at one at least for each of the incarceration sites, the major ones. That would fit with what's scheduled to be in the supplemental bill. Is that as I understand it, Molly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And the risk is that 10 feels too big not to vote on for the committee. The bill doesn't pass out of committee, or it does with a split vote. So that's what I'm thinking currently, or my concerns currently. Ms. Dooling?
I just wanted to know, I don't know, I'm trying to find out, I don't know if the budget initiative specifies one per county. I hear that as part of this bill, but if you're looking to mirror it exactly, the budget initiative doesn't specify that, I don't believe. So I just would want clarification on what your intention.
Sure. Senator Baldacci?
Thanks. I would, in terms of one per county, I'd prefer the Penobscot and Piscataquis continue to be together. And because Piscataquis County has almost has a very, 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 very small population, whereas Penobscot County is overcrowded. So if we, I just want you, I mean, there are huge differences between counties. So,
sure.
So there's one currently for Penobscot and Piscataquis. So if we're adding, it should continue to be like an extra one for Penobscot and Piscataquis, because that would only make sense. But I just want to throw my 2 cents in. I'm not sure procedurally where the committee is.
We're just having a discussion about the bill in general and
Yeah.
questions and comments. Representative Lemelin?
Yes, so thank you, Senator. I'm comfortable with adding 4 to put 1 in every county. I'm not comfortable at all with the 10. So as of right now, I'd be a no there.
Okay. Representative Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind the committee that we were unanimous on 10 in as far as this initiative, budget initiative. We were unanimous on 10.
So that was 10 last session.
This
10 this
initiative
session.
was
when
in
you
the
voted.
biennial
Yes,
budget.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And
that was
this
stripped out
committee
of the,
was unanimous.
yeah. And that was stripped out of the continuation budget
Yes.
because it was a new initiative. Okay. Ms. Bogart, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to what Senator Baldacci brought up. I think that is, I'll appeal to the committee to allow the Office of Behavioral Health to distribute these as appropriate, because I think the partnership between Piscataquis and Penobscot is a great example of how, sometimes it makes more sense to have coordinated efforts like that rather than having one person assigned to one county only. And so obviously it is your prerogative, and you've heard concerns from the sponsor, so you can address those, but that is a great example of why I would ask that you allow us to distribute them as appropriate, given the context on the ground.
Representative Connor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Forgive me, I'll be the idiot in the room. I'm confused as to where all of the numbers are. It started out at 4 and then the 10. So is there a specific number, an end number that we are trying to get to? And could we have what that number is, with the 10, with the 4, with the current, what is the final number of ICMs that we are trying to get to? And then can we discuss that? Is that possible?
Yes, and as I understand it, the bill specifies 4 with designation of location. The possibility has been raised of going to the work we did on what was the biennial budget at the time, when we agreed unanimously as a committee to support the expansion of ICMs by 10. So that's we're in between 4 and, well, we're back and forth between 4 and 10, which is, and I'm not sure you were there for all that budget conversation, which is why this may be new, but we did pass a motion to include 10 ICMs in the biennial budget. That was stripped out because that's a new initiative and was not in the continuation budget, but would be in the supplemental budget likely. Does that help?
It does. And what does the additional 10 get us to
26
as the overall number? Is it
26?
Is that going to be 16?
16 on top of the 10 plus 16.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the clarification.
I only understand that because it's clearer to me in the last 10 minutes. Okay. Representative Perry.
The other question I have, and I guess this is, I think the piece that Representative Dodges is alluding to as well, is that Waldo County has a reentry center. And the question I have for her, is there an ICM that does work with that center, or is it that you need one assigned to that center? Because do we need to add that we look at jails as well as reentry centers?
May I answer, Mr. Chair?
Please. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. It is my understanding that we have an ICM that works part-time in Waldo County, and that person is shared with at least 1 or 2 other counties. That position has been supplemented with positions of various responsibilities, with grant funding, with things that are similar to ICM services. One is a community liaison that is funded by a grant. One is a law enforcement assisted diversion pilot program that is also grant funded, that works with restorative justice and the Health Equity Alliance. And if the committee might be willing, I believe Sheriff Trafton is in the waiting room and could answer that with more certainty than I.
Not that I see. I don't see sheriff in there.
Jeff Trafton?
Isn't here, according to our clerk.
Well, then I have answered that to the best of my ability at this time. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Representative Perry?
Well, not wholly. I guess the question I have is, it sounds like more has been added to her through grants, but who are the grant holders? And is this to keep her employed because of the workload, or is this on top of a workload that she really can't handle because of what's been added?
I
Go ahead,
wouldn't.
please. No, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't dare answer that specifically, other than to say these services are so valuable that they weren't, they were so concerned they were only receiving partial services with a partial ICM, that they wrote grants to supplement above and beyond the services that they were receiving from the current part-time intensive case manager, as I have described.
I guess my question is, are these grant duties on top of what her assigned duties are, or these duties that she would have had anyway?
It's my understanding that these duties are other people. They have nothing to do with the part-time ICM at the Regional Reentry Center in Waldo County. We have at least 2 other people who fall under these grants who are providing additional services above and beyond the ICM that is part-time. Does that help?
A little bit, but
So this might-
are these duties what the ICM should be doing?
Are the
Or
three
these
people
added-
involved? Are the 3 people involved? One of whom is an ICM. She's obviously doing ICM duties. Are the other 2 people doing ICM duty? Go ahead, please. Don't ask.
Sorry, I don't want to break protocol here.
No.
Thank you very much. This goes back to the different definitions of intensive case managers. One of the people is called a community liaison. The other person is a law enforcement assisted diversion pilot program employee that works through services coordinated with Restorative Justice Project and the Health Equity Alliance. So again, if you're talking about the definition of ICMs, I'm guessing that some of those duties fall outside the parameters of what an ICM would do.
I guess the question I have is then, does adding more time for an ICM enhance the work that the others are doing, or is it that the demand is being met, but you want more stuff, so the grants are doing that? In other words, adding an ICM does not necessarily add those responsibilities.
I believe it is the former. They would like to have a full-time ICM, but here in Waldo County, we have made the conscious decision to try to expand services to increase the success of community placement and reintegration through our reentry center.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as I hear it, there are 3 questions on the table. Which language do we use? Do we use prior years or current years? And another issue is, do we designate locations or defer to the department to get it right? And then the third issue is, are we talking about 4 or 10? Have I distilled that to bullet points adequately? All right. So we have in front of us the bill as it currently exists. Yes, Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask for a corner caucus, please.
That sounds okay to me. Are you good to set up a quarter caucus, Senator Moore, for your? Yeah, okay. So we will take a 15-minute break and come back after we've had a chance to talk amongst ourselves. So I'll be leaving this meeting and joining the caucus. So we're back early. That's unusual for a corner caucus.
It must have been a productive corner caucus.
We were.
And you found your link. That was even better.
Are you dissing me again, Senator? Oh,
Senator Claxton, did you just use the word dissing?
yes.
I think that's awesome.
My goal is becoming Representative Connor to surprise you every once in a while.
Daily. I'm liking that.
Yeah, just as long as it's not a head shaker surprise. Ooh. All right. So I think we're all back. And we can resume discussion of LD 512. And are there, yes, Representative Perry.
Actually, what I'd like to do is make a motion and let's see how it goes. I would like to move that we do the budget language that we had proposed earlier for the 4 positions. And then send the department a letter requesting the geographic distribution of ICMs and the amount of time they spend in each county. And add also time spent with reentry centers as well. And I think that's it.
So you're looking for a report back about those elements, geographic distribution, and time spent and with the incarcerated population and the reentry population. And you'd like a report back on that. And we want to stick with 4, but use the language from the prior year session. Yes. Okay. Representative Lemelin.
I'm in agreement with that. I'd be even willing to stretch it to allowing us to review the report back for next session. And if we see that there is a need to go to the 10, then I'd be willing to do that.
Very good. So the way the bill is written, there is an option to review that language on the report, or we can write it that the report back comes back in January with some statistics, and then we can leave ourselves the option of writing a bill at that point. Would that address your concerns, Representative Lemelin?
Yes, it does, actually.
Okay. Senator Moore.
My only other suggestion to Representative Perry and her amendment would be that we would address the wording of the substance misuse to coincide with the current terminology.
And was that in last year's version?
Last year's version had substance misuse.
Okay.
So we
No. So sorry to interrupt. So last year's version struck all of the language, and I understood that Representative Perry's amendment is also striking all of the language and is simply an appropriation with a blippy.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. So
sorry about that.
You got that. Okay. So there's a motion on the floor.
I would second Representative Perry's motion.
And a second. Ms. Dooling, did you have your hand up? Yes.
Sorry, I'm confused about whether the report back, I heard from Representative Perry that it was a letter with the report back with information and information about getting time and everything, but I'm hearing from, I think, Representative Lemelin that he wants that as part of the resolve because he wants the committee to have authorization to report out legislation. And right, are we doing both a letter and a report back in unallocated language, or do we just need the unallocated language with the appropriation in order to accomplish what you need?
Representative Perry, your motion.
And I guess my question is, we as a committee can report out legislation, can we? Or do we have to have permission to do so?
You would need a joint order to report out a committee bill unless the report back language gave you the authority to report out a bill.
Okay, so we could use sort of the language, the language from last session, and add to that a requirement for a report back with the ability to report out legislation. Would that work?
That would save you the step of requesting a joint order and having it be referred and then reporting out a committee bill if you had that authority as part of your appropriation in this resolve.
That sounds good. Is that still okay with Representative Connor? Is a second?
Yes, Senator, it is.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the committee? And then we'll hear from the sponsor. Do you have any comments at this point, having heard this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be inclined, if I understand correctly, that I should take this as a friendly amendment. And so I will say thank you. I have been in contact with our sheriff who, and again, I apologize if this is just muddying the waters, but he wanted to clarify there are currently Waldo County prisoners in Knox County being held who do not receive the full level of case manager services. And the re-entry grant augments services for Waldo County inmates. The current ICM covers 4 counties, Knox, Waldo, and 2 bridges, which represents both Lincoln and Saginaw counties at the current level of service. Thank you. Thank you for your work. I appreciate this, and so does our sheriff. Thank you.
And I think in reflection of your work, we want to make sure that the language in our letter includes specific reference to reentry centers as high priority in the work of the ICMs. And we're likely to see additional ICMs come in supplemental request. So we wanted to proceed with 4, which has got us a unanimous vote from before. Yes, Ms. Dooling.
I'm sorry, Senator, you said in our letter, but I understood that the information that was going to be in the letter is going to be in unallocated language as part of this legislation. Am I misunderstanding?
We want to make sure the department understands how high a priority we regard this population. Can we do that in legislation, or is that better done in a letter?
If you want to say we think this is important, that's a letter. If you want to request specific information about reentry centers or direct the location of the positions, that would go in legislation.
I think it's both and. We'd like to send a letter stating our feeling strongly that the incarcerated population and folks who are no longer incarcerated but in transition, specifically mentioning reentry centers, should be high priority, and that folks should be distributed geographically as equitably as possible, reflecting the need of the services. We okay with that? Okay. Is that enough information for crafting a letter, Ms. Dooling?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you got to ask.
Honestly, I'm still confused. I hear the letter. You want to the letter though would be a recommendation that they be distributed in a certain way. Are you also directing the location of the 4 additional positions in a certain way?
We are not directing them in a certain way.
Okay. Okay.
We are sharing our concerns with the department, and we're looking forward to the report back.
Okay. Got it. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No. These are issues that need to be gotten right. So thank you for your persistence in getting those answers. All right, there's a motion on the floor ought to pass as amended. It's been seconded. Is there additional conversation? Then we'll go to Ms. Withy for a vote.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner. Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 10 yes, 3 absent.
We went around the barn to get there, but we ended up in a good place. So thank you for bringing that forward. We've had a very informative conversation and learned a bunch, Representative Dodge. So thank you for that. All right, that will bring us to LD 674.
Okay. LD 674 is an act to support early intervention and treatment of psychotic disorders. This bill is emergency legislation. It means that as soon as it's enacted, it goes into effect. It requires the department, in cooperation with the Department of Education and the Department of Labor, to establish a bundled reimbursement rate for coordinated specialty care model to treat individuals showing early signs of psychotic disorder. The services covered under the bundled rate must be evidence-based and treat both the individual and the family, and must include case management, family support, psychotherapy services, medication management, education, job services, and peer support services. Department is authorized to review, develop, or apply for any source of funds to implement reimbursement for these services, and is also directed to submit a state plan amendment or waiver to the federal government by June 30th, 2021, and also establish a bundled reimbursement rate no later than January 1, 2022, and upon approval of the federal CMS, consider various structures of a bundled reimbursement rate model, including a daily rate or a monthly rate, seek federal funding from the Community Mental Health Services Block Grant, and ensure that the organization providing the coordinated specialty care submits program evaluation assessments back to the department. The department submitted written testimony that requested that the committee tie the effective date of the rate, which is currently January 1, 2022, with the date of CMS approval to ensure the receipt of federal matching funds. And also, indicated that the timeline wasn't consistent with the timeline it needed to develop a rate, prepare, and submit a waiver application or state plan amendment and engage in rulemaking. I reached out to the department, and perhaps Molly has this information about what is the timeline that would be necessary to accomplish these things. So perhaps she is available to speak about that. You also asked for what Dr. Robbins called a wheelbarrow full of weeds, and he has delivered, and you have received reams of paper in your inboxes over the course of the last week with studies and additional information related to this coordinated specialty care program and the financials involved. Those were emailed as they were received over the course of the week from him and Dr. McFarland. And also last night with your bill analysis, and Luke also is in receipt of all of that information. And so there is no preliminary fiscal impact statement yet on this bill. You'll receive one if the committee votes out an amendment on this bill.
Okay. Does that prompt any questions from folks? Representative Perry, it looks like you're thinking of a question. No, you're still on mute. You're still on mute. We didn't hear any of that so far, Representative Perry.
Sorry, because I'm on the wrong thing. I was looking up information and reading.
Oh.
Haven't
Well,
got a question yet.
hate to distract you, but we'd love to hear what you had to say. You're muted again.
Yeah, I have nothing to say.
Okay. All right. Yes. Any other questions or concerns? I see our sponsor here, Senator Breen. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Did you have a chance to hear the analysis from Ms. Dooling? And,
I heard the tail end of it.
And does that prompt any questions for you or concerns for you?
Not what I heard is that you got reams of information from Dr. Robbins, but I'm sorry I was not able to hear the beginning of Ms. Dooling's remarks.
Okay. So
but at this point, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Senator Moore.
So I guess, thank you, Senator Claxton. Perhaps maybe we could ask Molly to share with us what kind of a timeline we would be looking at, because I know they're saying the current timeline was not consistent. So maybe if we had an idea of what would be an appropriate timeline.
Sure. Thank you. The timeline that Maine Care thinks is most appropriate would be having a rate contingent on CMS approval by July 1, 2022. So that is what we would offer as the timeline we think is reasonable.
Okay, so the department feels to get its work done, we need and get the federal approval will take until July of next year. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And where do we stand with the process of applying for any waivers or the federal dollars?
Sure. So this is work that the Office of Maine Care Services and the Office of Behavioral Health have been doing for a while, obviously delayed a bit by the pandemic, but a program that we are working hard at. I don't have a specific, we haven't applied yet to CMS. We're still working on demonstrating that cost neutrality that will allow us to receive waiver approval, and working out with input from peer and other folks how we can do this in the most efficient and effective way.
Has the bundle been defined? Have there been codes assigned to the elements? There wouldn't be new codes, it's existing codes. And has there been some preliminary discussions of what the bundle would cost?
Yeah, I think that's, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that's a lot of the work that's been happening. Office of Behavioral Health and Maine Care have been working on developing this bundle, identifying what the cost would be, and then figuring out how we structure it in a way that could demonstrate that cost neutrality.
Okay, because that's a separate track in some ways from getting the federal approval.
I don't think so. I think what we need to define and demonstrate the program that we're looking for and seek that approval. I think those are,
Okay.
that's one process.
Okay. Senator Breen, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, I have some frustration I want to be open and transparent about. We are in exactly the same place we were in 2 years ago with this bill. There's a letter I shared with the chairs from the department, or from the chairs to the department from the 129th that was developed in conjunction with the department that directed the department to go ahead and do the federal application in the summer of 2019, well before the onset of the pandemic. And I understand the pandemic has been an enormous focus of the department, understandably. But this bill, this issue, this directive from the committee to go ahead and do what's necessary to get the federal approval is now 2 years in the rearview mirror. And I guess my question to the committee would be, you know, are there some obstacles that your committee can unearth to that we could as a group figure out our way over or around? And if it's a capacity issue, could we add capacity? I would enlist the help of the committee and the department to figure out, you know, why this is languishing. And because I know that the private insurance market is already paying for this, which is unusual. Usually the private insurance market follows Medicaid. There are lots of organizations around the state of Maine who are anxiously awaiting capacity to start this program up with Maine Care reimbursement. Trainings have already been undertaken. I am baffled and frustrated, and I really want to find a way to get this done well before another year and a half goes by. Thank you for letting me put that out there.
Okay. Rephrase slightly, is there something that the committee and or the legislature can do to help the process speed up, Molly? Is there some things that the department could identify where we might be a resource in some of the barrier busting that Senator Breen refers to?
Sure, I do. I appreciate that frustration and know that the urgency is shared by some of the folks in our office. I do want to note that a request by letter that did not come with an appropriation does not give us the authority to spend money that we've not been appropriated. And so until we can demonstrate how we are going to pay for the benefit, we could not apply for CMS approval before we had any kind of appropriation to back that up once we were to get approval. And so that is part of the challenge that came with implementing a request by the committee. The work has been going on since then, and you know, we share the same goal in making this benefit available. And so, you know, if passed, we will continue to work on it and implement as the law would require.
So what I heard was things might be moved faster if there was a fiscal note and an allocation of additional resources. Do you know what that might look like?
I think the work that needs to be done is demonstrating the cost neutrality. And so that is what is taking the time. I would have to have our office do a fiscal estimate on how much, if this were to be a state funded service or not, not receive a waiver from this federal government to provide it. Although we think that's achievable, and that is some of the work that's been going on. Beyond that, we're going to step out of my comfort zone with the language here, and I don't want to be saying or promising things that I haven't been able to confirm.
Senator Breen, is your hand still up? Or again?
It was still up, but what Ms. Bogart just said raised another question. So I would beg.
Please.
Thank you. I'm curious about the term cost neutrality, because this is the first time I'm hearing that. And could you say a little bit more about what that means and why that is sort of an ingredient in this process?
Sure. And my understanding is that Maine Care is looking to request a waiver to offer this bundled service. And generally when we are getting a waiver, I believe it's an 1115 waiver from the federal government to offer services that are not part of the general Medicaid bundle. In order to receive approval for that waiver, we have to demonstrate that that service is cost neutral to the federal government. So that can involve a state appropriation that meets whatever portion may not be cost neutral to the federal government. But ideally, what we want to be able to demonstrate is that by providing these services, we are either more efficiently using resources in the community, or we're avoiding higher costs downstream. And so that is the defining the bundle and demonstrating that cost neutrality is the work that needs to happen before we request, and is happening before we request CMS approval for that waiver in order to leverage those federal dollars.
Is the DOE or DOL involved in at all in this? Because the range of services being stipulated in the bill references some of those coming from those departments. Are they even part of this conversation? How do we, they can't be part of the waiver application, but have they been looking at ways to support what would logically come under their umbrellas?
My understanding is that this work has largely been happening with the Office of Behavioral Health and the Office of Maine Care Services, and working with the folks at Peer and other providers. I would have to check with them to know if they're collaborating with DOL and DOE as well.
And the only reason I reference that is that it specifically refers to continuing education or employment, return to education or employment. And that certainly isn't something that the department should be owning. Okay. Are there additional questions? So I don't see any. What I heard you say though, Molly, is you might be able to go back to the department and say, those people in HHS are bugging me. What can we do to speed up the process of getting this closer to fruition? And then come back with some ideas.
I would really disagree with the characterization that there's any kind of feet dragging here. And so I'm happy to ask that question, but I don't think that there's,
I don't think I used the term feet dragging.
You did not.
Okay. I certainly did not mean to imply that. But I think the committee generally looks favorably on the bill and the intent, and we're looking for ways to be a resource in the problem solving so that we can be sure this is moving along. And I totally understand that you might need additional resources. I just don't know what they might be.
Yep, and I'm happy to ask Maine Care and Behavioral Health if there are resources that they need to move this process along more quickly.
Okay, Representative Perry?
I think I'm sort of adding to what you just said is the need for state monies, at least to initiate this, to move this forward. Is that something that we should be putting into that bill so that it can move forward for you? And if that's the case, might it be worth tabling the bill for a little bit to see if that is something we could do?
I would have to talk to main care to know what it would look like if we wanted to offer a state funded service.
Erin?
I can't tell you what you should do, but I do know that as drafted, it does appear that the department is directed to implement this program, whether or not it receives CMS approval because of the date certain for the bundled rate. And so that would be something that I would be looking for clarification on to make that more clear, because I think that is a little ambiguous about whether you want it to go into effect only if CMS approves the waiver, or whether you want it to go into effect no matter what. And we saw the same issue about on the postpartum bill about whether this is a state policy you want to go forward no matter what, or whether you want it to be contingent on receipt of the federal waiver to only use federal matching funds. So that's a question.
And we may ask for clarification pursued both ways. What can be done going down the path that's already been started and working towards federal dollars, but also modeling what it might look like without federal dollars. That might be additional information that would help the conversation. Representative Stover, you had your hand up.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're ready for this, but given all of the conversation we've had and that the department and Molly have some things that they're still working on, and that there seems to be general consensus around the concept and policy and content of the bill, I would make a motion that we table this pending getting that into additional information, so we can both respect Senator Breen's acknowledgement that we did send a letter and it looked a lot like this, to acknowledge, and maybe if I want to just make the motion right now, that we table LD 674. Thank you.
I'll second.
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, so there's seconds. So we'll go ahead to Ms. Withy for the vote on a tabling motion.
Representative Zager. Representative Zager is absent. Representative Lemlin.
Yes.
Representative Lemlin, yes. Representative Stover.
Yes.
Representative Stover, yes. Senator Baldacci.
Yes.
Senator Baldacci, yes. Representative Perry.
Yes.
Representative Perry, yes. Representative Griffin.
Yes.
Representative Griffin, yes. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Craven.
Yes.
Representative Craven, yes. Representative Madigan. Representative Madigan is absent. Representative Javner. Representative Javner is absent. Senator Moore.
Yes.
Senator Moore, yes. Representative Meyer.
Yes.
Representative Meyer, yes. Senator Claxton.
Yes.
Senator Claxton, yes. That's 10 yes, 3 absent.
So, and let's make sure we're clear about what we're asking Ms. Dooling to have prepared for the work session. And that will involve some work on Molly's part. Did your hand still up, Representative Stover, or did you have something to jump in here? Okay. All right. So, Ms. Dooling, based on what we know, do you have what was discussed, do you have a sense of what we're looking for?
I understand that you want me to submit questions to the department asking whether the department needs additional resources to accelerate its timeline of requesting a waiver from the federal government, and what would the process or the numbers look like for making the legislation contingent on federal funding or proceeding with state funding.
Does that sound like that covers the questions that the committee has? Senator Baldacci?
Well, I think the sponsor had talked about the fact that this committee had been promised something back in 2019. So I would like to see the questions kind of tell us what's happened since then, what efforts they've made to comply with that, as well as when we're likely to see it. I think that it should be expressed that we are generally in favor of the idea, but we want to try to get information as to what's happened in the last 2 years and why it has not occurred. Basically, what you've said, but I think we need to be pointed that we want to know what's happened, what they've done to deal with the requests, and how long is it going to take basically to achieve what the committee had asked for 2 years ago.
So I just want to clarify that I never wrote a letter on behalf of the committee on this bill. And so perhaps, I know Senator Breen said it came from the chairs. Perhaps the chairs did that on their own, but that was not something that I was included on to come to from the committee. So I don't know what document that is.
And I'll jump in and say, I don't think the word promised was used, but I may be wrong. I think it was requested. Senator Breen?
The letter was done in conjunction with the department. So it was something that my recollection was that the department requested it so that they would have a very concrete impetus to file the state plan amendment, and then also have a mechanism to report back to the committee on how that application was going. So
we'll make sure that letter is available on
Sure.
our folder.
And I think Senator Baldacci's idea about sort of a more thorough accounting or history of what's gone on, and what the concrete obstacles are might be helpful too, if your analyst can work with the department to get that.
Okay, and my question of Molly was, is there a project manager for this? We just found a project manager in a previous bill. Is there a project manager for this in Office of Main Care?
There may be a project manager. This is something that Director Probert and Director Pollard are both very committed to and are working on personally, so that they are managing this process, but there may be a project manager below them, and I can ask for that.
I was just thinking about a resource. Okay, are there any other questions to go to Aaron or clarification? Molly, do you have a good sense of what the next steps are with Aaron? Good, all right. So I don't see any other comments. Is there any other business to come before the committee? This nice, warm, sunshiny day, Friday.
Don't we have to vote?
Did we vote?
You did vote.
We did vote.
You voted to table.
Okay, sorry. I must have missed that. Thank you.
I don't want to vote again. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until our Monday morning start time.
So moved.
And seconded. All those in favor of adjourning until then, thank you, Senator Breen, for being here.